Welcome to Grilling and Chilling with Coleman, and unless the real Coleman's been arrested again, I'm Coleman. As you know, most of my channel is about grilling and having fun on the back deck, but nothing can be more enjoyable to me with a plate of homemade barbecue than finishing it with a bowl of homemade ice cream. And Darren is one of my good buddies, and he is one of the experts that I know in making the best ice cream. So today we're out here at his kitchen, and he's going to teach us all about making homemade ice cream. Darren?
Well, welcome to Grandpa Geisman's kitchen. Actually, it's my wife's kitchen, but she lets me use it. And today we are going to talk about homemade ice cream. I've had ice cream since I was a child. As you can see, body by ice cream. Don't miss too many bowls in the opportunity. Have had ice cream that's all been good. Some's better than others. Today we'll talk about some of the reasons why some ice cream is better than others. We're going to talk a little bit about the ice cream maker itself, and we'll talk about the reason why we prep it ahead of time and store it in the fridge. But today we're going to be talking about making butter pecan ice cream. Happens to be one of Coleman's favorites, so he says. And we're going to have a little get together later, and he might even share some of it with us. Now, I have a 10-quart maker, so there's no reason for me to give you the recipe exactly because it won't meet yours unless you have a 10-quart maker. But there's lots and lots of good recipes on the internet that you can get, but we will talk about how we generally make butter pecan ice cream. Well, let's start with the ice cream maker itself. I happen to have a White Mountain ice cream freezer. It's a 10-quart model. There are many out there that are 4-quart and 6-quart models. This, of course, is the Dasher. It's very important that we clean it. I mean, everybody knows that in the kitchen. We always clean things very well because you can have good ice cream and send everybody home sick if you don't have everything clean. So it's very important that you clean things well. But the ingredients really get started with good ingredients. I generally don't use anything in my ice cream that you can't pronounce. Unlike store-bought ice creams with guar gum and potassium something or other in it, I stick with all ingredients that you would buy in the store fresh. We have sugar, milk, cream, eggs, butter, vanilla, pecans.
I can pronounce tequila.
I don't put tequila in.
Okay.
But I do have a recipe that uses rum.
There
We'll get to that some other time. All right, with the ingredients, we'll start with sugar. And we'll put the eggs, we'll put the cream, we'll put the real butter extract in it, and a chug or two of vanilla. And then separately, we will actually saute the pecans because Coleman's allergic to raw pecans. So I devised a way, and maybe everybody else in the world does it this way, but I devised a way for Coleman that he can eat these pecans. They're actually sauteed in butter, and we'll get to that in a minute. But at this point, I usually put a little bit of vanilla in. I don't usually measure it. Put a little bit of vanilla in just to give it a little smoothness.
Now, let me preface this with something, because Darren does make his ice cream commercially. So he has agreed to show us how to make it and some of the tips and techniques that he uses. But what he hasn't agreed to do is share his recipe and the specific amounts of the ingredients he uses. So that's why he's being vague. It's not because he's being rude, not this time, but he's been a little vague because this is his commercial recipe that he uses when he sells ice cream.
All right, we've got our sugar, we've got a little vanilla. Now, when you use vanilla, and you're making vanilla ice cream, of course, you use a lot of more vanilla, and it's measured out. But this is just to add a little bit, to give it a little bit smoothness and flavor. If you're making strawberry ice cream, or if you're making cocoa ice cream, chocolate, or chocolate mocha, or blackberry, or strawberry banana, or many of the other kinds that I like to make, and it's peach. Oh, peach! You still put the dash of vanilla in it, but this one you don't want, because butter is a very subtle flavor. You don't want to overdo the vanilla in this particular batch. But I do use the real brand name butter extract whenever possible. So we'll put that in, mix it with the butter, or mix it with the sugar.
Wow, that's a lot of butter extract.
It is, but it's not all you're going to get.
Okay. That's the butter pecan.
Thus the butter pecan. You want a powerful butter flavor. Okay. And you won't get that with just a little butter.
Okay.
So we'll also add the cream, and that's heavy whipping cream. Again, this recipe won't help you unless you're making 10 quarts. You mix this up for a 4-quart batch, that is going to be some powerful ice cream. We'll put the egg product in. One of the things I also want to mention to you is everything I'm using is already pasteurized. And I do that when I'm giving it to somebody else like Coleman. But I have been known to make it with raw eggs and some other things. Never bothers me. We've always made it that way when I was a kid, and look what happened. So it's not all bad, but
all swole up.
But I understand in the commercial application, everything needs to be pasteurized. So we'll just add the egg, and then we'll do some mixing. I also have some sweetened condensed milk we're going to put in here. I'll add that, and then we'll come back.
All right, if we could, let's go ahead and recap what you've put in here so far.
All right, we've got sugar, we've got a dash of vanilla, we've got the butter extract, we've got cream, whipping cream, whole whipping cream, and we've got what he uses a pasteurized egg product, full egg product. And we've also got some sweetened condensed milk. And at this point, we basically get it stirred up. Now, one of the things you want to do is you'll continue to stir. And I like to use a stainless bowl as opposed to glass. I don't know why. It just seems to get better. And I know there's some candies, for instance, if you make apple fudge, if you're from Pennsylvania, you know what apple fudge is. But you can't actually make that in a glass bowl. It has to be stainless. I don't know why. I just know it gets better. So I'll stir this up, and you want to continue to stir until you don't feel the granules of sugar in it. You want to be sure that the sugar is completely dissolved. Once you know that, then we'll put it away. We'll put it in the fridge. It should set for at least a few hours. I usually let mine set overnight. And it actually, what it does for it, it helps make it creamier. When you get done with the product, you'll believe or feel that it is in fact creamier. So that's what I've learned over the years. I've been making ice cream by myself. Oh my, 40 years, something like that. It's interesting. My father, when I was a kid, I thought his ice cream was the best in the world, and I still think it's good. But then I started dating my wife, and her dad, my father, future father-in-law, had a recipe that he made, and I thought, well, now his is better. Well, now what's the difference between the two recipes? Well, I looked at both of them, and I saw, okay, there's some things that's different. And that's when I started my trek of knowing how to make ice cream. I started comparing, thought, well, if this makes it better, well, let me try this. But I can tell you this, once you get your vanilla ice cream mix the way you like it, once you get it so that it tastes just right, you can basically take that and build on it from there. Now,
so that's a good foundation to start with.
Very good foundation
with
vanilla
just a basic vanilla ice cream, and then you can start adding to it.
Absolutely. Well, I'll continue mixing here, and
I can hear the difference. I know when I heard you when you first started stirring it,
it was green. It almost sounded like there was sand in the bottom.
It does, and it's changed.
It's changed. It's getting smoother. You hear less and less of that, and you can actually see it slipping down the walls of the mixer bowl here, and you don't see the grains in it like you did. So it takes a few minutes. Some people actually will take their mix and then heat it. I will say this, a warmer product would dissolve sugar faster.
Okay, so Darren, how long did you mix it total?
Probably takes about 5 minutes of mixing to get it the way I like it, the consistency I like. You see no difference in the fluid anymore. Originally you could see difference in the where the high concentration of sweetened condensed was compared to the rest, but now it's all blended, it's all one color. There's no sugar that sticks to, no grains that stick to the side. You can tell that it is well mixed, very creamy.
Now, would you recommend for somebody that's making a smaller batch, maybe using a KitchenAid mixer with the whisk on maybe on low speed? Would that work as well?
I imagine you could.
Okay.
I've never tried that. I've always mixed by hand. I think you can tell the difference better by hand.
Okay.
You can hear better because the whisk doesn't actually touch the sides of the bowl. I'm not sure how you would you would tell if your sugar is completely done.
I can see that.
Plus, you could whip it too fast, and then this will be a whipped product, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to add air to that. And at this point, we're ready to put it into a storage bin of sorts, and I'm going to have Coleman give me a hand here to scrape it out, and we'll just dump it in there, and we'll put it in the refrigerator, and we'll let it sit overnight. But as you can see, it's very creamy, thick, and you don't see any sugar sticking in the bottom. We'll just get all that out and dump it in there and let it sit overnight. And when we're done, tomorrow morning, we'll add pecans. All right. We will put that in the fridge, let it set overnight. All right, at this point, we're going to saute the pecans. So we're going to take our stick butter, and I have two sticks that I'm going to put in here on low heat. You do not want to brown your butter. All you want to do is melt it at this point. We can turn it up later. I had these out, so they're a little bit soft to begin with. We'll soften that butter. We'll add the pecans. We'll stir them, and you'll see that it'll actually come, the butter will actually begin to boil, but you don't want to brown it. You don't want to fry it. We're going to melt the butter, and we want to cook the pecans, but we don't want to fry them, or we just want to saute them a little bit just to take the rawness off of it. And again, you can see how well those are melting down. All right, now that the butter is completely melted, we're going to add the pecans. And we're going to bring them up, and you'll actually see them foam up here in a little while. I added probably more pecans than normal, but this is for Coleman, and it's really special. So we'll turn the heat up just a little bit, but you don't want to fry it. Just saute them a little bit. You don't want to brown your butter. If you burn your butter, it's going to completely change the taste. So these are about finished. You can see that I'm not really frying them hard. It's kind of like a blanching of the pecans. So I'm going to turn this off, and when it cools, we'll actually put these in a container and put them in the fridge, let them in the butter, so that when we add them to the ice cream mix, they'll still have some body. They won't have turned to mush, because you don't want soft, soggy pecans in your butter pecan ice cream.
That didn't sound good at all. All right, so our next step is he's going to be adding this into his ice cream freezer. We're going to be doing that actually tomorrow morning, but through the magic of video, you don't have to wait till tomorrow.
We're going to discuss a little bit about the ice cream maker itself, why we do some of the things that we do. And I have an old White Mountain. I believe they still make them. I don't know that they make them in the 10-quart size. That's what I have, is a 10-quart size. Stainless steel canister. We talked a little bit about the dasher. The dasher blades themselves are made from beech wood because they don't absorb water. Easy to clean. You want to make sure that that's sanitized before you make your material. I will show you the inside of this, and this actually spins differently, or actually doesn't spin at all. It stays on the peg in the bottom, if you will, if you can see that. So that doesn't spin, but the dasher itself spins, and it spins in the opposite direction of the canister itself. That is done with the handle itself, and if you can see that, there's an inner spot that turns one direction and an outer spot that turns in the opposite direction. What you're doing is you're continually mixing and moving your product around. In the bottom of the bucket, and we talked a little bit about the bucket yesterday, the tub, you want to make sure that if you have a wooden tub, that it has been soaked, because the wood swells and you can contain water. You have to be able to maintain a water level in here. But that's it. You have a hand crank White Mountain ice cream freezer, and that's what I use. I'm a purist, so it has to be done by hand, not by automatic. But of course, I'm just kidding. You can make good ice cream with an automatic electric freezer. No reason that that won't work. All right, the next thing we'll do is load the product into the canister. But the first thing I do is I'll take a little bit of cooking oil in a spray form and lubricate the top, because these are actual metal parts that touch each other, and you don't want to create a friction there and create any problems. So I would just spray a little bit of cooking oil on that, set it down inside, a little cooking oil on that, and we're ready to add the product that we mixed yesterday in the kitchen, which is what I call the batter. Dissolve. So this pours out, and this is why I call it a batter. It's rather thick. Not as thick as cake batter, but it's thick. And we'll make sure we get all of that, because that's the good stuff. Scrape all that down there. Then we'll add our milk. I use whole milk. Some people use skim. But again, one of the big reasons this is considered a super premium ice cream is because it has a lot of milk fat in it. The store-bought versions generally do not have high milk fat. The other thing we talked about yesterday, there's two things that affect the difference between good ice cream and great ice cream. Milk fat content and the overrun. And the temperature you serve ice cream at is very important. Believe it or not, you want ice cream to warm up a little bit and start to melt. That's when it's best. That's why Americans love soft ice cream so much, because the temperature of that ice cream may be 28 degrees, as opposed to hard ice cream, which may be 15. Hard to scoop at 15, but you let it warm up a little bit, it scoops easier and it tastes better because you don't freeze your taste buds. Believe it or not, that's the purpose. Let your ice cream warm up a little bit. You don't freeze your taste buds, you get much more flavor out of it. All right, we're going to set this into the canister, into the tub, and then we're going to talk about the ice and the salt. Now, I lined up the bottom of the tub, or the canister, with the peg that's in the tub. Slide that in there. It's been a while since this one's been used. Got it out of mothballs for Coleman. Okay, we're ready to add salt and ice. Most people don't understand why you put salt on your ice. The idea to make ice cream is you have to have as much contact with freezing temperature on the side of that stainless steel canister. The way to do that is to add cold ice. You add salt to the ice to melt it, but understand that even though it's melting, it doesn't mean it's 32 degrees. So you're creating a salt slurry that is much colder than 32 degrees, and it makes all the contact, complete contact around that cylinder, and that's what chills your inside product without actually getting into the product. So we'll add salt and ice. If you have a ice cream maker, whether it's electric or hand crank, should not take you longer than about 20 minutes. If it takes longer than 20 minutes, you probably didn't add enough salt. So I use whatever salt is available. Currently I have a bag of feed salt. You can buy it at the feed mill or the Agway or Tractor Supply. The granulation is much coarser than table salt, but it's not completely coarse like rock salt. Rock salt works very well if you have access to rock salt. Table salt works as well too. Any salt will work, but you need to add ice and lots of salt. So we'll do that together. Ice right out of your ice cream freezer or ice cream maker at home in your refrigerator. Add ice, add salt, liberally. More ice, more salt. And then we'll cover it. And the reason you covered it is to keep the cold into the tub and the canister itself. Also makes a much nicer place for a grandson or granddaughter to sit on. In this case, I don't have one, so I'm going to use my knee, but you'll have to hold it down. It'll turn relatively easy when we get started. We can check our times. It should take about 20 minutes. As it begins to set up, it will actually start to crank harder and harder and harder. And you want it to crank as hard as you can still do it, because that's how hard your ice cream will be when you get it out. If you take it and then put it into your freezer for storage for later, if you don't have it set up hard, some of the problems are if you put it in a big canister, it actually will separate a little bit. So the harder you can make it, the better it is before you put it in the freezer. So we're going to get started now on cranking. We'll see how it goes. I expect 20-minute time. You don't want to turn real fast, because that's what you get when you have store-bought ice cream. Store-bought ice cream is whipped up so there's air in it. It's less pounds per gallon. Easier to scoop when it's frozen. If that's what you want, fine. But if you want good flavor, super premium ice cream, just a steady, consistent crank is all you need. After about 5 minutes of cranking, you'll want to stop and take a look what's going on underneath the towel. And you'll notice that the ice has settled a bit. It's a good time to add more ice. Probably don't need more salt, but top off the ice that's in there. That will probably hold you till it's all completely done. Put the towel back on and go back to it. We should be finished in about 15 minutes. Really starting to set up. It's getting pretty hard. We've been at it probably about 20 minutes. I believe we're about finished with the cranking. We talked a little bit about the amount of salt you use. If it goes longer than 20 minutes, you don't have enough salt. Salt water freezes at a lower temperature than fresh water. Fresh water, we all know, freezes at 32 degrees. Salt water, if it's got about 10% solution, it's going to freeze at about 20 degrees. And if you have a 20% solution of salt, it's going to freeze at about 0 or 2 degrees or something like that. That's why if it goes longer than 20 minutes, you don't have enough salt. And it is a pretty good workout if you're using the hand crank. Nothing wrong with electric. I make fun of people that do just because I can, but that's why I have the body I have. I mean, this body is ice cream, bacon, and moderate neglect. And who wouldn't want a body like this? So we're gonna crank it just a little bit more, then we're gonna get it out. Now you notice that we did not put the pecans in. We're gonna fold those in as we add it to the containers. And the reason why, you can actually mush them up if you're not careful. So it's easier to add them as you fold them in as you add them to the container just before you put them in the freezer. Berries, on the other hand, depending on what you want to do, when I make my berry ice cream, whether it's strawberry or blackberry or peach or whatever it is, I will actually want them smushed up because the flavor really goes out into the ice cream well. Same with the rum raisin. If you put that in and then let it set, let it freeze, the flavors go out into the ice cream better. This will be the same thing. This ice cream will be better after it sets for a day or two once the pecans have been added. But at this point, we're going to take it apart, show you what it looks like inside the canister, and we'll go from there. We'll lift the canister out carefully. One thing we didn't talk about was every ice cream maker has a hole in the side of it. There's a hole that leads to the canister, which is below the lid of the stainless steel container to begin with. The reason for that is, as your salt water builds up, you do not want it to get higher than the lid of your canister because it'll go into the ice cream. You'll have salty ice cream and your batch is ruined. This you want to make sure is open so that when it rises up, it'll flow out over. Mine is just below that at this point, so we're all good. Very carefully lift that out. We'll take the lid off. Oh yeah. If you can see that, that is the makings of some really good ice cream. Now, when I started, the ice cream level was down here, or the liquid level was down here. But now, you can see we're up to the top. That is called overrun. That's how much it actually swelled up, because whenever water freezes or liquid freezes, it expands. That's why you don't fill it all the way to the top. Keep it down here. I probably have a 40% overrun. The next thing we'll do is we'll lift this out, and this is always the fun part for the kids, because they usually get to lick the beater after it's out of the ice cream. But you'll clean as much off as you can as you're getting it out. I usually rubber spatula. The more you cake out here, the more is left for your container, and the more your guests will enjoy your homemade ice cream. You will be the king of the party next to the barbecue man. But this is something I encourage every young family to get involved in. You will make memories that will last a lifetime. I almost don't know anybody that hasn't had a little bit of this, and they've said that they can remember when their grandpa did this or when their father did this, and it just makes for a wonderful memory that in time they'll want to reproduce themselves. Now you can actually smell the butter in this. It smells wonderful. I'm sorry that you can't taste it. And now the next thing I do is carefully wrap it with a towel of some sort, because I'm going to dump it and pour it into containers. And I don't want the salt that's clinging to the side to run into the container as well. It's just something I started doing over time. The other thing I recommend is you put it in small containers, not big ones. Small containers will freeze faster. All right, at this point we have them evenly divided. Now, if you remember yesterday, we put the blanched or sauteed pecans in here. Put them in a refrigerator overnight. This is when I like to fold them in. This adds the pecans and additional butter flavoring. So we'll just continue to add this in what we believe is equal portions, so everybody gets the same. You may have to actually warm this a little bit, because this has been in the refrigerator. There may be some butter in the bottom. So this may be an idea just to warm it. Don't heat it, but just warm it so that the butter flows. And then fold it in, which is a technical term for stirring. And now you'll want to get this in the freezer as quickly as you can, so you don't lose the body of ice cream that you have. But I can guarantee you, your family and friends will love you for this. I encourage you to go out and get started. You can buy an electric freezer, relatively inexpensive. We'll put a link at the bottom that you can take a look at some of these freezers that we use or have used, and make your own decision. But we do recommend some of them. So take a look at the links at the bottom and enjoy.
Well, thank you for joining me today on Grilling and Chilling with Coleman. Hope you enjoyed today's episode on making homemade butter pecan ice cream with my buddy Darren. If you like what you saw, please click that like and subscribe button and ring that little bell. It'll let me know you want to see more videos just like this one. I've been encouraging my buddy Darren to put out some great ice cream videos and to start his own channel. If you'd like to see more of that, let him know in the comments below. I'll pass them on to him. Also, question of the day: what's your favorite ice cream? Let me know in the comments below what your favorite flavor is. As you heard, mine is butter pecan, but I'm from Texas and I think that's a requirement. So thanks for joining me. Y'all have a great day.